Welcome to Encounter, where we celebrate putting faith into action and community leaders who live out compassion, grace, and love. We're a program of the Broome County Council of Churches that addresses food insecurity through CHOW and the Greater Good Grocery, provides hospital and jail ministry, builds wheelchair ramps, and assists neighbors with transportation and shopping services through Faith in Action volunteers. We invite you to the conversation. Encounter your neighbors as we learn to walk together in love and kindness. Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Encounter. I'm Jeff Kellam, your host for this week. I serve as the Parish Associate at the Union Presbyterian Church in the Union District of Endicott. The radio audience doesn't know that as the program comes on, the visuals that we show for the opening of the program for the TV version, none of them have any snow in them. Maybe we ought to do a winter version of that. But it's cold out there. It's freezing. But not as bad as it was in my 10 years serving a church in northern Vermont, where the snow was 3 feet high. Winter lasted for like 9 months or something. And that church that I served in Vermont, the first time I went to it as a longtime Presbyterian, I got there to lead worship, and there were no acolytes. So I thought, well, it's a small church, maybe. But the acolytes light candles. There were no candles in that church. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. So I said, I don't see a candle to be lighted before worship. And they said, well, candles are kind of Catholic. Well, this was a former Covenanter Presbyterian church with old Scottish traditions. Though they had died out a century before, a lot of those traditions were still alive in that congregation. And as lovely and wonderful as everything was, I made sure that the next week we had a Christ candle to light. And I went online and watched the service from that church just a couple of weeks ago, and there's that candle still lighted. So a little light still shines there. We use candles in worship in churches as a symbol of the light of the world. And some churches have a candelabra that are lighted every week. Some churches, when you go in, there's banks of candles to light as you pray for yourself or for others. Candles are important in churches, as is the whole idea of the light of the world. My guest today is the Reverend John Martinichio, who is the rector at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Endicott, just a couple of miles up Main Street from our church. And 40 days after December 25th, the traditional birth date of Jesus, though we know historically it wasn't, but 40 days later we have this thing, something else called Mess, right? Christmas and Candlemas. I'm not familiar with it at all. And so I thought, well, here's a man who was brought up Catholic, right? Is no Episcopalian. Yep. What's Candlemas?
Candlemas was traditionally known as the Festival of Lights, where people would bring their candles to church that they would use for the year. Their church would bless the candles that they would use for the year. And then through the centuries, it became the purification of Mary and the presentation of Christ in the temple.
Yeah.
With the whole Simeon's canticle, Lord, now you let your servant go in peace. You know, your word has been fulfilled. So it's a service within the church that celebrates those three things. Some would say that traditionally it marks the end of the Christmas season. Because, you know, you're celebrating the light, who Jesus is, the presentation of him in the temple, and the purification of Mary.
Right. One of the other things that Simeon said was that Jesus was going to be a light for revelation to the Gentiles. So this broadens this whole light idea from the Jewish tradition into the whole world. The idea of the purification of Mary, which is a Jewish law that she was required to follow.
Yes.
And then you mentioned the end of Epiphany, or the end of the Christmas season.
Yep.
Yeah. We have a Moravian star that hangs on the porch.
Okay.
And although we take the tree down and all the decorations and lights down, I leave that star up usually until Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
Because I want that light to continue to shine. But maybe I should. Tomorrow is February 2nd. which is Candlemas.
Day.
Yeah, that's the day. So maybe I'll have to turn it off tomorrow.
Well, but we're in the season of Epiphany.
Yeah.
At least in the Episcopal Church. The Roman Church, they call it ordinary time. But in our tradition, we call it the weeks after Epiphany until the beginning of Lent.
Right.
So, and of course, Epiphany is the manifestation, the revelation of Christ to the world.
Yeah.
So we're still in that season of that illumination, if you will.
Right.
To be able to recognize him as that light.
Yeah, and that season of Epiphany will end with the Transfiguration Sunday.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And that's just a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
February 8th.
And then Lent begins.
February 18th. Yes.
And Lent, for me, has always been a time of shadows. It's darkness closing down. Even though the light is starting to come back at night, we notice that our post light, which could come on at 4:30 in the afternoon, is now, we could wait till maybe 5:30 to turn it on, so light is beginning to come. Well, this whole idea of light is really important in the scriptures, and the reason that we light candles is to keep that light shining in some way. We have a candle in every window because we like that light in the darkness of winter. It's also for older people, it's a nightlight in every room, but we don't have to go into that. Yeah. So speak a little bit more about the importance of light for congregations and for people of faith.
Well, I think if you look at light in Scripture, I mean, we can go back obviously to the book of Genesis, where there was darkness and there was chaos. And what did God do? God chose to give boundaries to darkness and light and sea and land. And so he took all that chaos and darkness and gave it boundaries, but also gave it meaning by saying that it was good.
Yeah.
And established the fact that, it's about light. It's about seeing. It's about believing. We look at Scripture and there's, many indications of light versus darkness, good versus evil.
Yeah.
And how we navigate that. I mean, Nicodemus went to Jesus in the middle of the night because he was afraid that somebody might see him going to ask him questions.
Yeah.
But yet he wasn't willing to do what Jesus asked him to do. But yet that image of darkness, the secrecy, the evil that exists. Yeah. And then, Jesus comes on the scene and he is, as John says in his gospel, the light of the world.
Yeah.
And John has probably half of the images of light in his gospel as opposed to 70-some that exist within Scripture.
Right. Yeah, the prologue of John is, the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has never extinguished it.
Right.
And it's interesting to go online and to look at some of these Bible passages we learned as children and to see all the different translations we have available now. My grandson once, when he was a young boy, came into my library and said, "Papa, why do you have all these Bibles?" And they were all different translations.
Sure. Yeah, I do too.
And then there's the Greek one, which we learned in seminary, and which I guess they still are teaching the original languages in seminary, but boy, I'll tell you, it didn't take me very long to start depending on other people to help me translate. But those images of light, that word is still one that enlightens us, not just physically, which is important, but also the idea that we're coming to an understanding. We are being, like Nicodemus, enlightened. And then part of that biblical image is Jesus as the light of the world. And where Jesus says and proclaims, "I am the light of the world." By the time our conversation is finished today, we want to talk about how you, viewers and listeners, can let your light shine too, because that's part of the, it's not just the idea of theologically or meteorologically that there's light. We want to talk about how we wind up being the light too.
Well, I think if you go back to baptism, at least when I do a baptism, I give them a baptismal candle that is lit from the Christ candle.
Oh.
And I say to the parents and the godparents, this light is entrusted to you to be kept burning brightly.
Wow.
This child of yours has been enlightened by the light.
Yeah.
Keep the flame of faith alive in their hearts until the Lord comes to greet them.
Wow. Yes.
So, it's a symbolic thing. And that Paschal candle, that Easter candle, is lit at baptisms, at confirmations, at funerals, and memorial services.
Right.
It's lit from the day of Easter till the day of Pentecost to remind us that Jesus is the light of the world. He's dispelled the darkness of death and the darkness of grief.
Right.
He's given us the ability to be able to see.
Yeah.
We don't like dark.
You're right.
Right.
Well, yes, and we talk about living in dark times, and I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, it's dark because of that, or it's dark because of this.
Right.
And so we struggle to find a vision as we kind of wade our way through the murkiness of the age in which we live.
Sure.
And this is not just the United States of America, we're talking about the whole world here. You are the light of the world, or Jesus is the light of the world.
Well, and I think in that light we find hope. It gives us the ability to be able to see, to believe, to, I think, physically and mentally grasp onto something that we need.
Yeah.
We need that light, the ability to be able to see and to see clearly.
Yeah.
And I think when we look to Scripture, there's a lot of indications, light versus dark or good versus evil. There's always that tension, and we're always trying to find that balance.
Yeah. When you were speaking about that, suddenly I heard this Johnny Nash song, I Can See Clearly Now. The rain is gone.
Yeah.
The clouds have parted, the light is shining, and now I can see. And we look at the healing of the blind in the Gospels, where it's physical sight, yes, but now we see who Jesus is and what power Jesus has to bring healing and light to the world.
Yeah. And I think just in a practical sense, even in the area that we live in, we don't see the sun that much, but on cloudy days we're kind of lethargic. We're kind of maybe depressed. But when that sun is out, it's just, even as cold as it is, the sun is out, and it gives us that sense of just, happiness, of warmth, of just a sense of peace, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, and there are folks who use light therapy to lighten their depression during the dark days of winter. I'm not sure somebody in Fort Lauderdale has as much need for this as someone in Maine or upstate New York, for that matter. But there are folks who can sit by a light, and it does help them mentally, psychologically feel better. Yeah.
And you look at Alaska and what they have.
Oh, man.
6 months of light, 6 months of darkness in some places.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would do. I don't think I would do well at all.
No, in either season, because you don't understand the light unless you've been through the darkness. True. That's the contrast, is that once you've been through some dark times, suddenly the light has that much more meaning.
Yeah.
And I'm taken with the flow of scriptures too. We talked about the star of Epiphany that leads these magi to the Christ child. That's kind of the rehearsal of what in the book of Numbers we read with the star shall come out of Jacob.
Right.
A star. I remember singing that in college. There shall a star from Jacob come forth, a scepter of Israel rise up, or something like that. I'm embarrassed not to know who the composer is. Bethlehem star, and then the book of Revelation, the Bible ends in the last chapter with this promise of the bright morning star. So this is still more light shining through the whole scriptural tradition. And then there's that switcheroo where I am the light of the world, and then suddenly Jesus looks at his followers and says, you are the light of the world. That reflects the giving of that candle to the child at baptism.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we share in that light. If we've really accepted our baptismal call then we share in the priesthood of the laity. We share in that mission and vision that Jesus has brought into the world.
Yeah.
And it's not a place. It's a reality. And I think, the reality is like this Sunday we have the Beatitudes. You're going to hear, and, today you'll hear those words, Matthew 5, and it's a way to live differently.
Yeah.
And I think because we share in the light, we have to be different.
Yeah.
We ourselves have to be that light, and we have to bring that light into the darkness, into despair, for people that need hope. And I think we do that as churches in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we feed people, we clothe people, we, minister to people, we allow our buildings to be used by self-help groups. So, we're sharing across the board in a variety of ways.
Yep. And
light.
You can see that light in people's faces who come out of desperation, out of their own darkness, into a food pantry. And now out of grace, you're giving them the nourishment that they need to feed their families. You can see the light in their eyes.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's true of a church that has a shelter for unhoused people, that's spending the night in this safe place, warm, among a community of folks like me.
Sure.
That again enlightens the soul. Yeah. Our guest today is Reverend John Martinichio, who is the rector at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Endicott. This whole idea of that there's so much music about light. We sing hymns that have references to light.
Right.
And, I have to admit that there is something about subdued lighting that does calm us. Because I know that there are some worship, we do candlelight communion.
Yeah.
We dim the lights, light the candles. There's something warm and wonderful and inviting about that. But still, it's that light that's the candles that are the whole point of it, to keep that.
Well, at Christmas time we sing Silent Night in the dark, and people hold candles, but that Christ candle is still front and center.
And even if you're not a person of faith, when there's a candlelight vigil for someone who's been shot,
right?
You've lighted a candle, and you see the reflection of that candle in the person's face, and that's a powerful image of we are together. We may not all believe the same thing. We may not all look alike. We don't come from the same neighborhoods. But here we are holding a common symbol of hope and faith in something or in someone.
Right.
Yeah.
And it unites us.
Yeah. Yep.
It brings us together, as that community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we're making a statement that that light, evil cannot overcome it.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Lord said that throughout Scripture. Darkness cannot overcome the light. You light one candle in a dark room, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I keep hearing songs. Maybe I need some help. But I think of Godspell. There's that "You are the light of the world." The singers sing, and as they're marching around the stage or in the movie. And the other, I've shared with you this song by Jesse Colin Young that I remembered from my radio days. I interviewed him about the time that he was going off on his own. He was with a group called the Young Bloods. Everybody Get Together, Try to Love One Another Right Now was the song, I guess, in the late 60s. And then when he went off on his own, he had an album called Light Shine. This was not Christian rock. It wasn't owned by the church or anything. It was his way of saying that we are light. Right. And so the words, I hope I don't get in trouble for copyright issues here, it's fair use. People, how can we survive if we don't let it shine on all night, night and day? The world is dark with fear and people scared to let you near. They need you to shine on them all day. People, let your light shine. Come on now, let it shine. Come on, let it shine on all night and day.
Wow.
You know, and it's wonderful. It's a recognition that someone needs to get the light that I can reflect to them.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably seen that in your ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, I mean, that's certainly appropriate for our time.
Yeah.
But I also think that first thing that came to mind is God's presence and God's favor is among us. And we're the ones that bring that to each other.
Yeah.
You know, even in the midst of the world situation, our
Right.
country situation, I mean, there's a lot of hope. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people doing a lot of good work, a lot of people bringing light
Yeah.
to those in darkness, to those who have no hope.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that song just kind of cuts to the core and says, we can do this.
Yes.
You know, as long as we trust, as long as we believe in something bigger than ourselves, whether you want to call that God or whoever, you know,
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
whoever, we have the ability to be able to make a difference and to be able to change, you know, our situation
Yeah.
and make each other's day better than it was the day before.
Yeah. And you mentioned the creation story before, and that God created us in an image. If God is light, and we're created in the image of God, then in some way we need to be light too.
Right.
We have a family member who was struggling with a very, very serious health issue, and the folks who came to the door with food and cards and gift cards even, they were showing their support and their love. And when the doorbell rang and someone came in, either from the school or a community group that they were involved in or an athletic group they were involved in, it lit up the room. You know, when someone's in a hospital bed and you go by to visit, you may not have the words.
No.
You know, and sometimes our words are so inane. We don't know what to say under these circumstances, but your very presence is what the light, the healing light is.
Well, and I think we trust in the guidance of the Spirit.
Yeah.
You know, and if we believe that the Spirit is fire and dove, you know, that Spirit gives us what we need in that moment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times that I reflect upon a situation like, well, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And it was the Spirit, I think, taking over, you know, my presence and allowing me to be that light.
my mind immediately goes to Pentecost, then, with the flames of Pentecost.
Yeah.
There's more light there throughout
Sure.
this whole Christian year in Christian tradition.
Yeah. And I think, you know, if we really believe that we are the beloved children of God, made in His image and in His likeness, then everything else that we are flows from that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, whether we're father, brother, whatever we may be in our life, everything needs to flow from that.
Yeah.
And that's part of our baptismal call, the questions that we say, you know, we're going to be allowed, you know, we're going to involve ourselves in prayer and the breaking of the bread and the teaching of the disciples. We're going to treat each other with dignity and respect.
Right.
You know, so given that baptismal candle, I mean, it carries us throughout our life.
Yeah.
And hopefully we feed that flame of faith.
Yeah.
And keep it going within our own lives. And I think that's where the church community comes in, because the church community gives us the support that we need to be able to do that.
Right. You know, I mentioned acolytes before. As worship begins, people bring the light in. And in our church in Richmond, it was children.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very interesting to watch these kids put on a white alb and bring in the light while their sneakers are lighting up as they walk down the aisle. That's a different kind of light altogether, but wonderful as people kind of giggled as worship began. Then there's the issue of carrying the light out. We don't extinguish the candles, do we, at the front of the church? Don't we carry the light out?
Well, we carry torches out.
Yeah.
And the service isn't over in our tradition until the candles are extinguished.
Right.
But I think if you look at the service, one of the most important lines becomes that dismissal, where we go out, where we're sent out either in the name of Christ, in the peace of Christ, in the power of the Spirit. You know, it's taking what we do and
Yeah.
going out into the world. And
Right.
that's the tough
Right.
part.
You know, my gosh, we've got like 3 minutes. Wow, I've been looking at the wrong clock all this time. Well, it occurred to me too. Now, how do we show light? How practically speaking, and I turn often to the fruits of the Spirit.
Okay.
When people are claiming certain things in the name of God and they're doing awful things in the name of God, or they're claiming to live a religious and faithful life, and I'm not seeing the fruits of the Spirit
Right.
in them, then I'm thinking, and I don't live up to these either, but in Galatians, the fruits of the Spirit, or other ways to let your light shine,
Sure.
are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now, if you live into those words, your light is shining. There's no doubt that you're bringing light to someone.
Sure.
And so we measure these. This would be a good thing to look at every day. Put it in near where you keep your clothes, and when you put your clothes on, read through the list and say, how can I live love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control? And it ain't always easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
But I think we're encouraged, even in the reading today, promote justice. Walk humbly with your Lord.
Yeah.
Love one another.
Yeah.
And as difficult as it is, we do it. And I think we need to celebrate the times that we do it and not berate ourselves for the times that we don't.
Yes, right. Because we can beat ourselves
Right.
up. Yeah.
And Lent is coming up, and Lent is the time when we can focus upon,
Yeah.
the negativity, the mortalness, the sinfulness of our lives, but being assured that God forgives us.
I always think of miserere, and I think have a miserable Lent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that when the darkness of that Good Friday comes, the crucifixion, we know that the light of resurrection is going to come on Sunday.
Sure.
And we live into that hope all the time.
We do.
Well, speaking of time, my guest today on Encounter has been Reverend John Martinichio, who is the rector at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. What time are your services today?
8 and 10.
8 and 10, and at Union Presbyterian Church, 10:30. And look, to see where people of faith gather in your community and join for worship as we continue to celebrate Epiphany and move toward the Lenten time. I'm Jeff Kellam, the Parish Associate at Union Presbyterian Church in Endicott, hoping that you'll join us again next week when Joe Selapak will be sitting in the seat and welcoming you to Encounter. And in the meantime, be courageous and patient enough to be gentle with people and with yourself.